Welcome back to Buckeye Talk. I am Stephen Means, and that is Stefan Krajisnik, and that is Andrew Gillis. This is sort of a news pod, just because while we were busy focused on the demigod that is Jeremiah Smith, things have been happening in the college football space. We talked to about 8 to 10 different players over the last 2 days. The AP poll also came out, little thing. So I guess where do we want to start? We want to start with players. Or we want to start with AP poll stuff. Where do we want to go first?
Let's go players first. They gave us access. These guys spoke to us. Let's start with them, and then the poll that's handed to us every year. We can go with that later.
We can talk about all the things that's handed to us. Okay. I guess Stefan, you can kick us off then. What is between Wednesday and Thursday? What's the most interesting thing you heard?
I'm gonna do a little 2-for-1 here and talk about how I feel like we got a lot of intel on both coordinators throughout listening to players the last couple of days. Right, last week we heard from Arthur Smith and Matt Patricia directly, but I think from talking to guys like Bennett Christian, Isaiah West, Christian Allegro, on and on down the list these past couple of days, we've gotten some more insight into just like how this offense is going to operate, how these linebackers are going to be used in Matt Patricia's system. So let me start, I guess, on the Arthur Smith side of things. Like we alluded to this a little bit last week of just like how much smoother and quicker and everything this operation is going to be with Arthur Smith at the helm as opposed to, first-time play caller and what Brian Hartline was last year, right? And we talked about how, Arthur was asked last week, like, do you think the cadence and kind of the rhythm and all this, factored into Ohio State's struggles last year? And Arthur Smith kind of smirked and was like, I'm a veteran too. Like, I'm not a rookie. Like, I know what you're trying to ask me there. Like, I'm not going to answer it. It's like, okay, yeah, but if everything was fine, you probably would have answered and been like, no, like, I don't think that contributed to their struggles last year. So it's like, okay, we can read between the lines. Like, it's clear that this team is going to benefit from having a veteran play caller, running its offense, right? A guy who has head coaching experience. And like guys like Bennett Christian and Isaiah West kind of confirmed that, right? Like I think Isaiah, I can't remember the exact word he used, but he was just saying like it was, I think structured maybe was the word he used, like saying everything was a lot more structured and kind of.
I have the quote here if you need it.
Yeah, go for it.
Arthur Smith has a structured plan for the offense. We don't have 1,000 different plays. We have a few that we're really good at. Arthur Smith is real big on being really in the basics. That's what he's really been about. He's real big on just simplifying stuff. The way we read wide zone, tight zone. He's real big on making everything simple and making sure we get it down.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the line in there of just like it's not 1,000 plays, but then later Bennett Christian is talking about how good the plays are that they're running. I think maybe more of what Isaiah meant is like I don't think we're going to see like a million different formations and like this a bunch of like weird stuff. I think we're going to see one formation that can have a bunch of different plays come from it, right? And just like different ways to disguise what Ohio State's trying to do on a given play, and also kind of being able to get quicker. And I think that helps too. Just like you tell Julian, like, here's the formation, here's 2 plays you can run out of this, go to the line of scrimmage and figure out what works best, and let's run that play, right? So I just think everything's going to be just smoother, quicker, and more effective and efficient at the same time, right? Ryan Day always talks about efficiency as it pertains to offense. Like I think the speed in which everything moves, like I think that matters as well. It doesn't mean that they have to run tempo and play 100 snaps on offense on every given game, right? But I think the way you kind of flow can just make things a lot tougher on defenses, right? And even like Peyton Pierce was asked a bit about, or sorry, not Peyton. Someone was, I think maybe it was
Bennett was talking about Peyton Pierce saying that.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Bennett had a conversation with Peyton, and Peyton was like, yeah, this offense is like really hard to slow down and very difficult, right? And yeah, Peyton's not the most experienced linebacker in the world, but like, I don't know, he played a good amount last year, right? And played against teams like Miami and on and on down the list, teams with pretty decent offenses. So I felt like we learned that about Arthur Smith, and maybe more reaffirmed it than learned it. But it's great when you hear someone like Isaiah West who played a decent amount in the offense last year, like he notices the differences. Bennett Christian, who's been at Ohio State for how many different play callers and coordinators, sees the differences and notices it. And then even a guy like Peyton Pierce. So we through the eyes of Bennett Christian and Isaiah West and kind of indirectly Peyton Pierce, I think we've learned a lot about what Arthur Smith presents in terms of being the offensive coordinator for this team.
Have we gone too far with the Brian Hartline offensive coordinator slander?
I don't think it's slander. I think it's just like it was his first time doing it, and someone
Fair.
who's done it at the NFL level for X amount of years is going to be better at the operation. I don't know. I don't know if I would say like Brian Hartline's like the plays they designed and ran were just like trash, and it's like what is this offense supposed to be? It's
Okay.
just the nature in which it operated. Like Ryan Day would have done a better job than Brian Hartline because Ryan Day's done it before. Chip Kelly would have done it than Brian Hartline. I'm not saying Ryan Day the head coach. I'm saying like Ryan Day the play caller would have been better because he's called plays before compared to Brian Hartline.
So why wasn't it better in Miami against Miami when Brian Day was the play caller?
I mean it's a tough change to make in the middle of the season.
Yeah, they had
Had a
30
month.
days though.
Yeah.
I think the overwhelming point of like, yes, I agree. The concept of, okay, the guy who's done it before and has been doing it at the NFL level, and quite frankly, Arthur Smith could be somebody's offensive coordinator in the NFL right now. This is not
Mhm.
like, oh, you've been banished, you'll never coach in the NFL again, and now he had to just go find a job. I think he just picked Ohio State, and I'm sure he had other suitors at one point. It wasn't a bad job with the Steelers. It's just the Steelers, from a talent standpoint, relative to their level, were not one of the better teams. And then did they win the division last year?
Yeah.
Okay, so he won the division.
Sunday night, yeah,
Okay.
remember the Sunday night game? Yeah.
Okay, so like this is not a has-been offensive coordinator, and I'm sure he'll have suitors next January when Ohio State season is up to be the offensive coordinator again somewhere in the NFL if he so chooses to do that. This is not Matt Patricia a year ago where it was like, well, what else is he going to do? No one's like really checking for this dude. So I do agree with that. I think for me, I've taken some of these quotes and just tried to apply it to, oh, is that a shot at the guy before? And it's, no, Brian Hartline wasn't perfect at this, but with Brian Hartline calling plays, Ohio State went 12-1. I mean, Chip Kelly didn't beat Michigan when he was a play caller here.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Hartline did. He
You
did
could
it on the
argue
road.
he's a big reason why they lost to Michigan.
Right. So it's I think a two-way thing of I'm trying to make sure for myself I am highlighting this is why it's so valuable having a guy like Arthur Smith with that background and that resume in that position, while also not going 30 million miles the other way of like, well, this is why Brian Hartline was bad at the job. When in all actuality, I don't know, he was pretty good at the job. And Texas game aside, the other two games that we would describe as like big games coming into the season, I don't know, they looked pretty awesome against Penn State and they looked pretty awesome against Michigan. And okay, maybe they got out schemed a bit against Indiana. Fair. But I think we also place a lot of that onus on Tyler Bowen not having the offensive line ready to see something like that. And then, again, Ryan Day was calling plays. It was Ryan Day's decision to go to a silent count against Miami, which is a neutral site game that isn't near Miami or Columbus. So I'm not sure why he went silent count in that game or felt the need to do that. But the overarching point I do agree with. I just wanted to make sure that for myself that I don't think what Isaiah West said was a slight against Brian Hartline. I think it was only a compliment to Arthur Smith and what he is bringing to the table. But I also think it's interesting, Gillis, because Isaiah West said they don't have a bunch of plays, but like Bennett Christian said they do. Bennett Christian was like, oh, they have plays on plays on plays and things that can like build off of other things, which I do think that is where maybe Brian Hartline's lack of experience showed up. Is it didn't feel like sometimes things were building on each other. So if we're getting back to that in 2026 and you mix that with returning starting quarterback, that's playing college football, better in offensive line. Bo Jackson apparently has been kicking ass in practice and Isaiah West is coming along fine. Then we get to a point of like, we're all pretty excited about what this offense could be in 2026.
Yeah, what I heard from that was Bennett Christian saying plays on plays on plays on plays. I heard window dressing. That was what I thought of. Like, you know, you might have a lot of plays, but it's like, I don't know, play action crosser right. I don't know. That's the most Madden play call I could think of. You probably have like 6 different formations you can run that out of. And that I think is probably what you're talking about. So I think with the passing game it's a lot more complex. There's motions and there's probably routes and there's different formations you can run things out of, and it's very simple. When Isaiah West was saying that, well, the first thing that I thought of was, remember the Titans when he was like, I run 6 plays, split veer, just like Novocaine, give it time, always works. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense. But the way that I kind of looked at this was that's what Arthur Smith's job is as a running coach. Like, I don't know. I don't think it has to be a very complicated run game where it's like cutbacks and like Isaiah West said, get downhill. Like, he's not running the Shanahan type of like Terrell Davis is going to cut back and like you're always, it's a wide zone scheme where it's like, oh, you're always looking to cut back. And like, that's what, like Mike Shanahan had for so many years. And that's why he was such a successful, run game coach in the NFL. I don't know. It just kind of seems to me like Arthur Smith is just like, put your shoulder pads down and get the hell upfield. And again, I'm not trying to minimize what a run game can be, but to me, that sounded much more like our passing game is going to be intricate. Our passing game is going to have a lot of, a lot of circus around it. Like, there's going to be a lot of different moving parts and guys are moving all over the place. And then the run game is just going to be, let's run straight at them. And that was the way that I took that.
So it kind of seems to me, Gillis, that you think there's going to be a lot of formations, but not a lot of plays. I think I'm on the opposite side where I think it's going to be not a lot of formations, but a lot of plays you can run out of those smaller number of formations. I honestly don't know which one of us is right, which one is wrong. And what do you think, Steven? Both?
Yes.
Cheater.
Both. No, seriously. I genuinely think it's going to be both. Because I think it's going to be both. Because I also don't think the way Isaiah and Bo have constantly described themselves as running backs when we've asked them, they're not the same style of runner. So I think Gillis is, I think they're just going to run straight at him. Yeah, if Isaiah West is in the game. But if maybe it is more outside zone, maybe it is more stretch when it's Bo Jackson, because you want, probably, we're going to see stretch the boundary at some point. That's never going to die. But but seriously, like get Bo. I mean, what was Bo's best run out of the season? Outside zone against Michigan. Yeah. So I think Arthur Smith might tailor everything to his personnel. So I think that's part of the reason why getting the offensive line right is so important.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to do all that, then you have to have an offensive line who can do those things, right? That was the big thing in 2024 is, man, they're doing a lot of stuff in the run game. Yeah, because they have athletes who can get out there in space and go up front. So if you're going to move Austin Saravelt on the inside with Luke Montgomery and Carson Hinsman, that's 3 dudes who can move, right? That also gives you a stout pass protector in Ian Moore, assuming he is what people think he can be. And I think at his best, I think that Phillip Daniels was a stout pass pro guy who could also move a little bit. Now, he got hurt. Maybe didn't sustain throughout the season, so when they needed it most, it wasn't at his best. But I think the first month, especially that Texas game, we saw what Phillip Daniels could be in that position. So I in terms of run game, it's like, I don't know who's in the backfield with Julian saying. Is it Bo Jackson? Is it Isaiah West? Is it Jacoby Jackson? Or is it Legend Bay? You're probably not running much inside zone or HB dive with Legend Bay in the game, right? But also, I don't know, you're probably not running a bunch of swing passes if it's Jacoby Jackson.
Yeah.
So I think more is on the table for this Ohio State offense in terms of what is Arthur Smith going to call than it has been for a while, because, again, we go back to that depth word, but also a versatile group of people where no two skill sets are alike. So I'm not cheating. I'm just, that's what I genuinely think.
No, I think that's fair. And you're right. I think figuring out who the starting offensive line is a big piece in all that of like figuring out what the best thing is. I guess Ryan Day had mentioned on Saturday that they expected Austin Saravelt back. And like, I think we can confirm that now because we saw him coming out the practice field, like in uniform and stuff like that. So if you're a fan who wanted like some level of confirmation, like we got that the couple days that we were in the Woody and able to like see Austin. We didn't see him last week, like coming off the field and stuff like that. So, and then the real quick, the point I was going to make about Matt Patricia, like Patricia kind of confirmed to us that there's going to be a lot more guys play this year, a lot more rotation, and that especially pertains at linebacker as well. And Christian Allegro kind of gave us some insight into terms of like what he is and all that. Like he spent a lot of the spring and early part of preseason camp here working kind of outside. He's working a bit more inside now. He was saying when they have three linebackers that Christian's kind of outside and those two guys are inside, but also he said like everything that he can do, Riley Pettijohn can do. And I was just like, how difficult does that make it to like read you guys pre-snap? Like what's it like disguising knowing that you and Riley can be out there together? We know what Peyton Pierce is going to do, but like, is that tough for a defense to figure out like what's Riley going to do, what's you're going to do? And he was like, yeah, like the thing about me and Riley, it's like we can both get after the quarterback and line up on the edge. And I was like, oh yes, give me all of that.
So I did a depth chart projection after the first 3 days of practice, and I had Riley behind Peyton as a Mike, and I had TJ behind Christian as a Will. I think I'd flip that based on talking with people today. TJ Alford was saying everybody's had a chance to play Mike, and it's because you want to see who's comfortable with the green dot and who's not. But TJ was talking about just he likes that. He likes being in charge. He likes the fact that he's in the middle of the defense. He can get to everything, play sideline to sideline, fit gaps, do all those different things, and also set fronts if he needs to. Like he was talking like he really, really likes being that guy. And Riley Pettijohn was talking like, yeah, I didn't do a bunch of edge stuff as a high schooler. I was just more of a Mike linebacker. But here, yeah, man, I'm coming off the edge, getting off the quarterback. So I that's the one thing, to your point, I would flip that. And so, but it even more validated the idea for me that if there are three linebackers on the field, it's because Christian Allegro's playing Sam, Riley's playing Will, and Peyton Pierce is playing Mike linebacker.
Yeah. If nothing else, I think we're walking away from, recording here on August 20th, thinking to ourselves, like, whatever Riley Pettijohn kind of had to make up for what he missed in the spring, like, I think he's ready to rock. And that gets me really excited because a lot of the latter part of last season, we were kind of sitting in the press box being like, Riley Pettijohn next year, man, like buy stock. And the spring injury, I think maybe set that back a little bit. Like, I think we're there. Like, I think him, Christian, and Peyton, and I think we're going to see a decent amount of TJ Alford too. Like, those four guys are going to have really, really massive impacts in terms of what this team does defensively.
And Riley was saying he kind of knew that. Like, he was going to have to bring it this summer.
Right.
And to your point, it sounds like he did. And also, Eli Lee's name keeps coming up.
Yes. Christian said that he's forced the most fumbles in camp. Eli Lee has.
So, buy some stock in Eli Lee. Yeah. Maybe not for 26, but,
for either that or sell stock in, like, second-team running backs fumbling a whole lot, whichever way you want to look at it.
Yeah, two things can be true. Gillis, most interesting thing you heard over the last 2 days?
Yeah, I hated the way that first 18 minutes went, because the first thing I was going to bring up was the Isaiah West, Arthur Smith kind of conversation and kind of talk about that. And then I was like, okay, well, my second thing that I was going to bring up was going to be the linebackers. But
I cheated there a little bit with a 2-for-1, but
like, if I could just build off of the linebackers though real quick, like I think like the way I would have to go back and listen to TJ whether he went to D or E, but he's like, I look at it as we got like 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D. Like it, we'll see how accurate that is when you get to the season, right? Like a dude who we're not talking about in the starting lineup, talking about a rotation. You're always a little like, we'll see, because, I don't know. I want to know how much that plays out. Like, for example, like we're going to find out against Texas on September 12th. But I do think it's interesting. Like if you run, kind of this defense that we're talking about, it's not just like the depth, it's the versatility of it. And, the way that he was talking about, handling the mic, and he said a bunch of different people have played the mic this year. Like, it kind of like got me thinking, it's like, if you want to run like a 3-2-6 in like a 3rd and 10 plus situation, I realize this is hard because Peyton Pierce is going to be your mic, but like, it just had me think, like, is it possible today, from what we heard, that like you end up with a situation of a 3-2-6 where it's like Quay and Kenyatta are your defensive ends, but then it's Christian and Riley are your two linebackers, and Peyton's
No.
not on the field. And that, like, I just the interchangeability, that's fine. That's totally fine. Just the interchangeability of, Christian and Riley, let's say, on the field at the same time. If you have 4 down linemen, let's say, and you have 3 backers, like, kind of stacked on top of one another, either one of those guys can kind of bump down and play off the edge. Like, if you have Christian playing off ball and Riley off the edge, or Christian coming off the edge and Riley playing off ball, like, I think it's just another, like, the thing that I was thinking as TJ was talking today was just, this defense is going to be so versatile, I think, in terms of not just like, oh, well, like, we have, like, I think we talked about it, like, Sonny could have played the Arvell role last year, or like Arvell could have played like as like a more off-ball linebacker. But I do think this year there is going to be a lot of different body types that roll in and out of there. And like Matt's talked about this as well. Like, the interchangeability, the versatility, and the depth, I think, was really kind of something that I was like listening to. Like, okay, this is going to be a really, really important part of this defense. We've talked about the secondary and like that kind of needing to lead the way, we think, this year for the defense. The linebackers might be right there, not just like with how good they need to be, but how versatile and how good they might be.
I don't see a single situation where Peyton Pierce is not on the football field. So that's just that.
Maybe.
So what do we think of Ohio State's tight end room?
I believe that they think they have depth, but I worry that they just think they have like 3 or 4 guys who are all okay.
Mason Williams on Wednesday got asked what Keenan Bailey thinks of the room, and his answer more or less was very on par with what Day has been saying, what I'm sure Keenan would have said if we were talking with him about the depth of the room. Mason Williams likes to block, which I think is very interesting. I think his quote was, actually, I have the quote because it was one of those types of quotes that was very like dudes rock.
Yeah.
Just like kind of like dudes rock kind of quote. People,
Yeah.
what he loves about being a tight end, people love catching balls and stuff, but there's no better feeling than getting a pancake. Really, there isn't. When you can get a defensive end flat on their back, there really isn't a better feeling. It's just like in one of those dudes rocks things. But there's some, obviously he got asked a million questions about Will Kazmarek and that, but I paired that with how Bennett Christian talked about how he wants to be Will Kazmarek, like that's his goal for this year. He also threw out the Nate Roberts is happy he's not being a fullback all the time. He didn't say anymore though. He said all the time. So I guess if you want to look into it and do the sports writer thing, I'm like, what does this mean? Yeah, it's the semantics.
Semantics, Steven. That's
the most semantic thing you can say. I'm not sure if we should be concerned about the tight end room because I don't know how much it matters.
I'm with you. I think if you're looking at what they have to replace, right, in terms of Max Clare and Will Kazmarek, I think you also have to look at it from the lens of like they're replacing Max Clare, who's a great receiving tight end, but they have a deeper receivers room. So does that matter? Like, I don't know. What if Max Clare was back on this roster? Where do we think he ends up in terms of like receptions on his team? 4th, 5th?
I don't know.
Probably.
So here's
I don't think they need a guy like that. Replacing Will Kazmarek, I think, is going to be more of the challenge for this team than I think replacing Max Clare.
They're replacing 2 day 2 picks at tight end.
Yeah.
And Cade Stover was a 4th round pick. The reason I'm asking these questions is because like I don't know, they're replacing 2 day 2 starters. How many rooms on this team are replacing 2 day guys who are taken within the top 80 of the draft? Them in the linebacker room. And we're with the linebacker room, there's like excitement of, yes, I know you lost 2 top 10 draft picks, but you might replace that with 3 highly rated recruits who are ready to go and a transfer from Wisconsin who might have some flexibility in terms of where you want to line them up. okay, the tight end room was one of the strongest rooms on the roster last year, and both of those guys went in the top 60. In fact, what's their actual draft picks there? Not top 60, but Max Clare was the 61st pick in the NFL draft. Will Kazmarek was the 87th. So 2 top 90 picks. And I don't think we're sitting here going, yo, we're really excited because they have 3 dudes who were highly rated and they're ready to go in a transfer that's got some positional flexibility. Instead, we're going, well, they got some depth.
Yeah.
They got some options, but are they good options? Are they – it's what Dave was saying on Saturday of we have options, but now we're looking for somebody to take the job. And I don't know if anybody feels all that comfortable with, like, just because you have options don't mean they're good options.
Right.
And I'm not sure, based on the way the tight ends talked and the way Ryan Day has talked about the tight end room, if we shouldn't be a little more concerned about what's going on there. Or has Keenan Bailey built such a room at such a high level that we're allowing the level of benefit of the doubt? And if we are, that's fine. I think he has earned that.
I think the thing with that Stefan was saying, like, I don't know, Nate Roberts being like a really good receiving option for them at tight end feels completely within the realm of possibility. Like, this was like a guy who Ohio State like made it a point. I remember talking to Tavian St. Clair during his recruitment, and he was like, they are really pushing me to talk to Nate Roberts. Like, they were really after him in his recruiting process. Nate, he committed on the spring game, I think in 24. He was utilized in a way that they put him on the field against Texas in the first game of last year. He was a borderline top 100 recruit. I talked to Keenan at the Cotton Bowl last year, and he was like, he better be ready to carry the torch of the tight end room moving forward. Him is
so is
fine.
he ready?
He should be.
Fine, because like, yeah, you're right. You asked Keenan back in December. Hey, he said he better be ready. Okay, it's August. Is Nate Roberts ready to do this?
I think so. The question though is he ready to do this? And it depends what you mean by this. Because if you're asking him, is he ready to be a 3-down, can't take him off the field tight end that he can run, he can block, he can catch? I think the answer is no. Can he do this? He's going to be a Max Clare role? Yes, I think he's ready to do that. Where I would have concerns is the Mason Williams, Bennett Christian, Hunter Welsing is like, losing Will Kazmarek is it's not on par with losing Caleb or Arvell or Sonny, but like, it's a really tough thing to add with that group and what you have. So
what's okay? Then that's my point. What's the standard for the tight end room? What should be the standard?
The standard should be like drafted in the first 5 rounds.
Okay.
And playing close to an all Big Ten level. Like
for your starter.
For your starter. Because they've kind of consistently, quietly done that.
Okay. So if that's the standard, and I think I agree with that,
mm-hmm.
then that's when Keenan Bailey says to Andrew Gillis that Nate Roberts better be ready to do this. And we're saying that the standard is you need to be a top 150 draft pick level player. Okay. Is Nate Roberts ready to be that?
They're not talking about it in a way right now that you would sit there and like.
And that's my concern.
I've been waiting for the presser, whether it be Ryan Day or whether it be someone where the tight ends get brought up and he's like, remember when he was talking about receivers, he was like JJ, Brandon Innes, and then we're figuring like 3, 4, 5, 6, like they're figuring themselves out. And like we think they're all good, but we're figuring themselves out. When they've talked about the tight ends, it's been like, yep, the tight ends, like as a collective,
they're there.
Guy really getting singled out. I don't know.
And this isn't about catches because the usage isn't going to be the same in terms of the ball in their hands. But I do anticipate some level of the usage in terms of what personnel packages are on the field. They're not going to just abandon 12 personnel. They've been doing 12 personnel since 2020.
Yeah.
So like the blocking is important here. In fact, that's more important than whether or not Nate Roberts can catch the ball and then make somebody miss. Right, especially at this stage in his development and where he would fall in the hierarchy of who deserves the football. Does Ohio State have 2 dudes who are up to the standard of Ohio State starting tight ends under Keenan Bailey right now?
I couldn't answer that confidently.
Okay.
And part of maybe what kind of, I don't want to say like raises a red flag, but like makes you like kind of like think about the stuff that we've said this offseason about Arthur Smith coming in, right? And we're like, man, like Isaiah and Bo, they sure are going to benefit from having an OC who's like got a very sophisticated, like good run game history, right? Man, JJ is going to benefit because like this is a guy who knows how to get the ball to his best player and his best weapon. We haven't really been like this is going to really benefit the tight ends, even though it kind of should, right? Like you look at Arthur Smith's history and some of the tight ends he's coached and the way he's used them, like this tight end group should be one of the groups that I feel like throughout this offseason we should be pointing to being like, they're going to benefit a ton from Arthur Smith being here. We haven't gotten to that point yet because I don't think we've been given a ton of reason to.
And Mason Williams is talking how excited he is about all the different ways that the tight ends can be used here. And that's all great. Is it going to be effective is my question. And right now, is it depth from strength or weakness? The linebacker room, to pair it with that, the linebacker room depth sounds like a strength. Like we're at a point where we're saying, hey, man, Eli Lee's name keeps coming up. And we know he's not going to play as much this year. But I don't know if that's what's happening with the tight end room quite yet. And if we're allowing benefit of the doubt because of what Keenan Bailey has built over the last 4 years, fine. But I'm also like, I don't know, like 35% on alert for, okay, you got options. Are they any good options in the tight end room? Couple things for me. Shout out to Edric Houston and James Smith for doing our jobs better than we do it. They asked the old Kobe Jackson, does fear enter his mind when he sees 96-3 standing in the middle of that defense? Well, not standing, but at defensive tackle. And his answer was no, because we have Luke Montgomery and Austin Sarabelt.
Ooh, let's go. I didn't listen back to that presser. Let's go.
Why would he be like, no, I don't fear defensive tackles because we have Luke Montgomery and Austin Sarabelt, unless Austin Sarabelt and Luke Montgomery are your guards? So there's that.
Maybe he was talking about running to the left.
That would make zero sense because they're both defensive tackles.
I don't know.
Or is Edric lining up at defensive end?
There you go. See, Stefan got what I was doing. Steven got very mad.
Then that says something about Bo Atkinson, then if that's what's happening.
That's true.
Exactly. Either way you play it, something's wrong.
Let me make a note real quick though, because you brought up the defensive tackles there.
Yeah.
Will Smith Jr.'s name gets brought up a lot.
He's gonna play football.
And part of this, I think, is just like I think those top four guys, Edric, James, John Walker, and Will Smith Jr. are going to like rotate quite a bit.
Absolutely.
But it's like his name just keeps getting brought up, man. It's like I'm like very firm now that they're going to have four guys who play at defensive tackle like quite a bit.
He is not as good as Ty Hamilton or as good as Davon Hamilton, Ty's older brother. Like they're NFL draft picks. But the journey is very, very similar of he gets here, he's a lower rated guy from Ohio, and you're just going, give it time. And then there's going to come a year where it's going to turn on, and then no matter what is happening at the position, they're in the rotation. And so it's like whatever Ohio State did with his defensive tackle room this offseason, I know Will Smith, if he was on this roster, he was going to play real snaps for them. So I agree. Yeah. Does it mean he's going to play 900 snaps this year? No, he's probably going to be in the exact same role he was in last year. But that's 10 to 12 snaps a game. And sometimes when you're out there, you're playing the right team, you might just get stuck out there and you can't be holding your breath because, oh no, Will Smith has to play 8 straight snaps. No, I don't think Larry Johnson is thinking that at all. He's thinking, oh, Will Smith's out there. Cool. Anyway, here's the call.
Yeah. All right.
Will Smith.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, can you hear me? Will, eat up the double team. I also like the one thing we did see when we were in there for practice a lot of times is it was James and John Walker paired together, and it was Will Smith and Edric Houston paired together. So if Will Smith and Edric Houston are the starters against Ball State, not going to be shocked about that. Do I think that's who ended up taking the field first against Texas? No, but I won't be shocked if Will Smith.
I think
there's a lot of mixing and matching.
That's literally what I was going to say, because they posted a clip, I think, from Wednesday's practice, kind of like a highlight reel. And there was a moment where they showed like the defensive tackles rushing. They didn't show us who the offensive guards were. They showed us the defensive tackles rushing, and it was Edric and John Walker. So there's going to be a lot of mixing and matching, I think.
Okay.
if you're playing a running team, would not stun me if you see a lot of like James Smith and John Walker in the middle of that defense. And if you're playing like against Texas, would not stun me if you see a lot of like two defensive tackle sets that have Edric and Will Smith, just because they're a little bit more like, cut and stunt and get into gaps and cause havoc much more than James and John are just like sit your butt down in a hole and stop the run and just kind of make everything plugged up in the middle of that.
Andrew Gillis, you heard it here first, doesn't think Edric Houston can stop the run. Okay. If I say that by November 1st, Ohio State starting receivers are Jeremiah Smith, Brock Boyd, and Chris Henry Jr., is that too far?
No.
Okay.
The only pushback I would have is Brandon is still starting in the slot. I could see Chris Henry being in there. I don't know. There's part of the Brandon Innes thing where it's just like I just kind of want to see it before I predict anything with it.
Yeah. We've talked about this on this pod. Like I drove the bus for Chris Henry Jr. Like I said, like I think that like USC game is a good barometer because like assuming there's some kind of postseason for this team that's not the Gator Bowl, like that's going to be about the midway point of the season in terms of games, like because they play I think it was Indiana's their sixth game, I think, and then I think USC's 7, or do I have that? Maybe that whatever it is, like kind of right around then you have a bye week. Like I think Chris is going to jump in. It's just Steven's brought this up on the pod before. Like veterans typically don't get relegated under Day, and like Cameron, we were talking, Steven and I and Cameron T. Robinson from the Athletic, we were talking, and like Cameron brought up a point too. Is just like Day loves Innes, so I think that's too far to say that 2 freshmen are in, because that would mean that like what we've seen from Devin McEwen in fall camp, which was good, and the Brandon Innes thing is like, okay, well now he's a depth player and like a reserve, like coming in off the bench, and like that to me just feels a little bit too far. I think like, are they going to play meaningful snaps by November? Yes, like early. Yeah.
Meaningful by November. They're playing on September 12th.
September 5th.
Yeah,
September 12th.
I'm not worried about that.
September 12th.
If I were to reword it in terms of like, would those 3 guys be the starters? I don't know. Would I be comfortable if those 3 guys were starters by that point? I think so.
Okay. If you could go back in time to January and the portal's opening, do you tell Ryan Day and Cortez Hankton, hey, this is where 2 of your freshmen are? Because what's the word? I haven't heard a bad word about either one of those 2. In fact, I've heard the polar opposite. Like Jermaine Matthews today is giggling. He called Chris Henry Jr. a physical specimen who has more bend than you would expect for someone his size, which just means I know he's that big, but he doesn't have a lot of the cons of being that big as a receiver. And then like with Brock Boyd, it's like he's one, like a lot of things have been said about those 2 to where it's August and they play football in 2 weeks. So we're not going to have this conversation now, but it would be a fun exercise to go, who are Ohio State starting wide receivers? And you only have one spot that's open for like interpretation at this point. Like if those 2 are not starting next year, and Devin McEwen can come back.
Mm-hmm.
So really, maybe it's just, hey, who's their starting receivers in 2027? I don't know, Brock Boyd, Chris Henry Jr., and Devin McEwen, and we'll call it a day. They are quickly becoming something that's not even up for discussion once we get to spring. But if you could go back in time and tell Ryan Day and Cortez Hankton and the rest of this coaching staff where Brock Boyd and Chris Henry Jr. are going to be by the time you get to August 20th, this is like practice number 13 or something like that. Do you think they approach the portal differently?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because I think you saw last year how barren things can be when one of those top guys goes down.
Okay.
And they're at least in a spot now where I just wonder, like, if you basically what I'm thinking in my head is just like, would you have taken the money you gave to Devin McEwen and put it somewhere else?
Yes.
And your starters are Brandon, Chris Henry Jr., Jeremiah Smith, and then like Brock Boyd's that next top option. Like, I would still be sitting there thinking like, man, it'd be really nice if there was one more like veteran guy that you could turn to if you needed to.
Yeah, I think that's I'm on Stefan's side. I think no, because I think right now you've got JJ, Ennis, McEwen, Parker as like the older kind of guys in the room, Brock and Chris. There's your 2 deep. Like I don't know, you're locked in with a 2 deep there, and like you said, Stefan, I think with how long this season is, with how scary hours it can get if like one guy goes down in this room, like last year we saw, like I think they would have loved to have avoided that scenario because I don't know,
we're just rotating more.
Yeah, you're rotating more. Somebody pulls a hammy, and then all of a sudden you're looking at it. And I think from a coaching staff perspective, they can love Brock Boyd and Chris Henry Jr., which they do. And the players can talk about Brock Boyd and Chris Henry Jr., which they do. And everybody can talk about this as like, oh my God, this is incredible. But I still think I still think the coaching staff would probably look at this and say like, 2 freshmen that you're like looking at going, they're starters week 1, September 5th. I think that would make them a little nervy if there's not a veteran. Like if there wasn't, like if it was JJ, Ennis, Brock Boyd, Chris Henry Jr., and then nothing, and then it was like David Adolph and Jaquaden Guilford, I think they're much more nervous. So it's like, I think just having that stability is there. Like we've talked about this with the floor. And then the other part of it is like, okay, I don't think Devin McEwen got $6 million in the transfer portal. It's like, what could you have reasonably gotten? And I think there's a good argument to be made of like, if this team's going to be laser focused on throwing the ball this year and really put the ball in the air and try to, move the ball down the field that way, there is an element of like, all right, what would you rather have, a 6th defensive tackle or a 5th and 6th receiver? Decent argument, I think, where you're at right now.
I don't think I'd be worried if it was your top 3 were Chris Henry Jr., Brandon Ennis, and Jeremiah Smith, but Brock Boyd is your 4. I just wouldn't. I get it, and some of this is the scars of last year, but that was part of the thing is like, oh man, one of those freshmen went down. Yeah, one of them, and the other ones weren't good. It's 2 Quincy Porters this time around, and they're both. There's no plateau. Both of them are still doing this. Phillip Bell is in year 2, who I thought looked pretty good in the practices we saw. Desi Jones is still on this roster. Like I'm just not putting Kyle Parker up there with that group right now. Like he had 300 yards at LSU last year, and this is not like he's not here to be a starter for this team. And if I'm wrong, then everybody clip it and talk about how wrong Steven is. But I'm not putting him in the group with those 5 right now. He's not shown me enough that he deserves to be in the group with those 5, and he's been hurt and not a full participant in practice. Brandon Ennis is here. So even if we think, man, the slot position hasn't been as good as it's been for the last 6 years, when you had Emeka Egbuka and Jackson Smith-Njigba and Garrett Wilson and KJ Hill manning it, he still does have the built-in excuse of, well, part of the reason I didn't get the ball as much last year is because I was playing with 2 dudes who are top 5 draft picks and a tight end who was a top 60 pick. Somebody wasn't going to get the ball, which is why we're all on high alert for the first month and a half of like, what does Brandon Ennis do with these opportunities? We are either going to, if you are on the side of Brandon Ennis is not that good, you're either going to be validated or you're going to be very, very wrong. If you are on the side of Brandon Ennis is very, very good, he just needs more opportunities, you're either going to be validated or proven very, very wrong. He is the most he is one of the most up in the air question mark things about anything we know that is a sure thing to be playing football for Ohio State on Saturdays. But in the midst of all that, you have Devin McEwen, who was a 750-yard receiver at a G6 school who was flashed, undoubtedly flashed here. But you have 2 dudes who fit the mold of what Ohio State elite receivers have been. You lose your black stripe early, you start building momentum. Do you have a moment where like you're still 18, so you plateau for a little bit? Sure. Chris Henry's was when he first got here. Brock Boyd's was near the end of the spring, and now they both showed up in fall camp and they're kicking butt. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. It's a freshman. I don't know if Marvin Harrison Jr. had more opportunity in 2021. Don't we think he could have played well? Like, I'm not saying he would have been Jeremiah Smith, but turns out the only reason he wasn't more productive as a freshman is because he had Garrett Wilson in front of him. Turns out the only reason why Jackson Smith-Njigba wasn't more productive as a freshman is because he had Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave and Jamison Williams in front of him. Turns out the only reason Emeka Egbuka wasn't more productive as a freshman is because he had Jackson Smith-Njigba in front of him. Turns out the only reason Cardinal Tate wasn't more productive is because he had Marvin in front of him as a freshman, and then a demigod showed up his sophomore year, and Emeka came back. So this has been the most, like the John Cooper quote. They're going to bite as a pup. Well, the receivers keep doing that. So I get it. You want to have some insurance there with the room. But also, if there's going to be a position group on this team where freshmen are awesome from day one, it's wide receiver. So I'm with you. Devin McCune being here is great. But I don't think I'd be like losing sleep at this point if you told me something happened and now all of a sudden Brock Boyd and Chris Henry Jr., instead of playing 20 snaps a game, they're playing 50.
Yeah, I do. I am thinking about your proposal, though, at the front there of what if those three are the starters, and what if Brock Boyd isn't the reason Brandon Inniss isn't in the slot? What if Jeremiah Smith's in the slot and those two guys are on the outside?
I just love when Stefan speaks my language, man. I'm just saying, man. JJ a slot receiver in 2026 with Arthur Smith as a play caller and Julian Sand as a second-year quarterback and a veteran offensive line is a scary idea. Very scary idea.
Do you think JJ Logg's a rep at tight end this year?
I mean, he's done it before. I'm just looking up something real quick. I want to see Drake London. Because Drake London's about the same size as JJ, 6'4", 230. So he's like pounds-wise, he's 10 pounds lighter, but the idea bigger receiver that you would typically stick at X. Mm-hmm. And Drake London has spent a religious amount of time in the slot over the years. 2022, 21.6% of his snaps were in the slot. 2023, 26.2% were in the slot. 24 was 39%, and then 33.7% this past year. And I know Arthur Smith wasn't for all of that, but I don't know, man. There might be something to tap into with JJ in the slot, especially if they kind of did some body recompositions in terms of like how he's built a little bit, and the idea has been yards after the catch. Sign me up for JJ in the slot as much as humanly possible.
That's where Gillis is right about Ohio State having a million different formations this year. It's just how many different places can Jeremiah Smith play?
You could run the same play with Jeremiah at X, in the slot, at
A, B, C, D, E, F, X, Y, wherever you want.
Who cares?
It's just like, I don't know, Julian, just throw him the ball. Ohio State was number one in the AP poll. No shockers for anybody?
I thought the number of first place votes they got, the gap, I thought that was the most surprising part.
Mm-hmm.
40 out of the 69 is pretty crazy, right? Because we saw even in our Big Ten preseason poll of like, nobody was putting them lower than like 3, right? And that's where I thought even in the coaches poll, it's like, okay, like if you're never getting voted lower than 3, like your chance, like we saw, I think in the coaches poll, we saw like Indiana got a decent amount of first place votes. It's like they also got like a 16th place vote. So it's like there's a lot of like variance on like what they're going to get. Ohio State is not going to get voted any lower than 3. So I was like, I think they're going to be number 1 in the AP poll too, because it's just like the floor is so high that it's hard to beat them out. To get 40 of the 69 first place votes, though, is like, whoa. Like there's a lot of people that have been saying a lot of things about Texas and Oregon and Notre Dame and Indiana and Georgia this offseason. And it's like, sure seems like a lot of those people think Ohio State's better than all of them. So that was the part that surprised me. And I think as we're getting kind of more through and through this preseason camp and learning about different guys kind of filling into roles and where they fit and like who their coordinators are, like I was kind of thinking about that in my drives to Woody today of just like, they have all these great players, right? And they have players in spots that's like, okay, we'll see like, what they look like, right? Like what does Quay Russaw look like this year? Does he take another step? Does Christian Allegro take another step? And it's like, man, but they went out and added a weapon in terms of an offensive coordinator, right? They went and got a former NFL head coach. And we saw how that worked for them last year. It's like, that's a weapon. That's not just like your average hire, right? So I think when you start to put all these pieces together, you're like, yeah, like I get why people are so high on this team. Like it's Ohio State with a whole lot of talent and a whole lot of good coaching on their staff. Like this, it makes sense. The first place vote is the only thing that kind of surprised me.
Yeah, that's fair, and I think there's two things here. I think it's one, it's the benefit of the doubt. It's like, yeah, they'll probably be really good again. Like they're Ohio State. Like, I think, and the other part of this too is like it's just like kind of like a benefit of the doubt. Like, look, they're going to be really good, and like I don't know. I think there's a lot of people like looking around the nation. Like I don't know, like Ohio State fans are watching and listening to this. Who's Notre Dame's starting middle linebacker? Who's Texas's starting safety? Who's Oregon's starting defensive tackle? Like you might know those answers, but I think there's a lot of people who don't. So I think that there's a lot of people who are looking at this like around the country who might not know the intricacies of like, man, they're really hyping up Peyton Pierce. And oh man, like Devin Sanchez, he's ready to go. Or like Jalen McClain. Like I think there's a benefit of the doubt given of just like they're going to be really good. But then I think it's the offense. And it's not so much this idea of like, well, why simply can't they recreate three dudes who were born in a lab to play football, who were picked in the top 11 of the NFL draft on one side of the ball? Why can't Caleb Downs show up at Ohio State with Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles again? It's like, I don't think they're looking at it like that. I think they're looking at it going, they'll probably just find somebody else who's like maybe not as good and still good. And like, oh no, you don't have Arvell Reese. What are they're Ohio State. They'll probably have the number 75th overall pick at linebackers. That's crazy. But I also think people are just like looking at the offense. And like that to me is the simplest. People think this offense is just going to be a Death Star because you've got a returning Heisman finalist in Julian Saint at quarterback, who is going into his third year, who played all of last year. I think you've got people are looking at it going, Bo Jackson, returning 1,000-yard rusher who was a freshman last year. Jeremiah Smith exists. I was listening to a National College Football podcast where they said, I don't know how Chris Henry Jr. looks in fall camp or any of the transfers that they brought in, but I bet they're pretty good. And then they're looking at the offensive line going, wait a minute, 4 of the 5 guys are back? Yeah, that's important because continuity more than any other position in football maybe is more important on the offensive line than anything else. So I think that the simple answer is people are thinking this Ohio State offense, even if the defense takes a step back, which I think we talked about on our stats pod, people are looking at this offense like, oh, it's just going to be the planet killer from Star Wars. It's going to be the Death Star. They look at what they've got. And I think there's two things that go into that. It's the benefit of the doubt, and it's like, oh, right, they still have these guys that are awesome.
Gillis, would you have put Ohio State number 1?
No.
Okay.
I would have probably had him, if I had to guess, like if I had to do a poll, I would have probably had him 3rd.
What's your top 5 if you're naming people there right now coming into the season?
Oregon, Indiana, Ohio State. Those are ranking I had him in my Big Ten poll. Notre Dame 4, Texas 5.
Okay. Stefan?
I would have done Oregon, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Indiana, and man, do I have to pick an SEC team? Probably not.
Miami. Miami.
I know. The thing is, I've said things about Darian Mensa that I feel like I have to take back soon here because I think Miami might be pretty good. I'll put Texas at 5.
Okay. Stop looking at my ballot. Oregon, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Indiana, Texas was my top 5. I had Miami number 6, Georgia 7, BYU 8, A&M 9, USC 10. Well,
I love the idea of me and Steven have a million debates this offseason, and then it's on August 20th, and we're like, the same exact top 5 teams in the exact same order.
It's just like, yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, it's good television, though, man. It's good television. I think this is what happens when you are unquestionably the best program in the sport. Because I think there's like 7 teams who have a strong case for being number 1. Whether it's because you got a bunch of returning guys, you have a returning quarterback, your coordinator situation, but all of them have a reason for why they shouldn't be number 1. Yes, Oregon is probably from top to bottom, and you're talking about personnel, has the most talent. They also lost their coordinators to California and Kentucky. And this is the first time that's like, okay, let's see, Dan, See, Daniel, if you can make some hires here, man, then that's a big part of it. Coordinators matter. Coordinators won Indiana a national championship last year. Coordinators won Ohio State a national championship the year before that. And coordinators in Connor Stallions won Michigan a national title the year before that. So, coordinators. But I think when you don't know, you default. And the default is, okay, who's the best program in college football? Like, unbarred, it's not a conversation. Ohio State is the top dog program in college football right now. They have a tier 2 coach, though. Tier 2 coach. Number 1 program, tier 2 coach. Yeah. It's just, okay. So, any other shockers for you guys in the poll?
There's also an element of like a lot of AP voters were very wrong last year with Clemson and Penn State in particular. Yeah. And I wonder if some of them were just like, you know what, I'm going to put Ohio State at number 1 because I can't be that wrong.
Yeah, I hate that though. Like even like Brett McMurphy earlier this week is, remember, like some of these teams are not going to. Yeah, okay. Remember, football games are going to get played. Okay.
I do like the I do like the debates too of just like do away with the AP preseason poll because like it doesn't matter, like blah blah blah, and it's like, I mean, sure, but also like if we didn't have the AP preseason poll, we would have DraftKings top 25 odds to make the college football playoff, and we'd be like, okay, like Ohio State's the favorite to make the playoff. I guess they're the number 1 team. Like it's like, yeah, what's it matter?
And also, it's just for documentation, man. It's just for history's sake.
When I looked at this too, and I was like kind of like laughing. I said this a couple of weeks ago on the pod. I was just like, I don't know. It just kind of feels like whoever wins in Austin, Texas on September 12th is going to be the number 1 team in the country because it's either going to remain Ohio State or Texas is going to jump a Notre Dame team that doesn't play anybody, a Georgia team that doesn't play anybody, and an Oregon team that I think plays Oregon State early. So it's like, or Boise State, maybe, but like,
maybe I don't know.
So I was like looking at this, I was just like, there's going to be so much movement early because of the big games.
Maybe, but again, there's no like set guidelines for how you're supposed to vote in this thing, so we all come up with our own rule for how you vote in this thing. So like, you might be right, Gillis, but you might not. Who knows? I don't know, because my criteria for how I vote isn't the same as someone who votes who lives in Louisiana versus someone who votes who lives in California versus someone who votes who lives in Illinois. Right? I try. Just to let people in some insight, I try my best to think through the lens of the college football playoff rankings. And so that's why I think whenever those rankings come out, I always go and compare. Okay, how did I vote versus because that's what happens is the AP poll matters, and then we get to the first weekend of November, and all of a sudden everybody switches the number. Like if you're number 3 in the AP poll, but you're number 6 in the college football playoff poll, all of a sudden you've got a new number by your name on all the chyrons and lower thirds and whatnot. So I try to think that way because then I'm not just going like who's the best team. It's a resume conversation. Coming into the year, there is like, okay, who do I just think is like the best team coming into this thing? Going forward, there is going to be a resume involved in this. So, yeah, if Texas smacks Ohio State around on September 12th, then like absolutely they're going to be the number 1 team in the country. If they fiddle around with Ohio State and it's a close game, I might think about it twice. Just because, like, I don't know, you barely covered in a game that was at home where you were really only favored because you were at home. So I don't know. It's just there's no set criteria, so it's kind of hard to bank how things are going to shape out with that. But that's it. Okay, we caught up on all the news things. I think captains come out on Saturday. That and Block O. So we know. Let's call our shot. Last time, Stefan, Block O.
Block O. I'll go with Austin Serveld. We're in the patch.
All right, Gillis.
I'm with that too.
Okay. So here's the problem. The 2 answers I want to give are probably going to be fighting to not want to give up their number. Like Kenyatta just got 2. And you're telling me I can't wear it because Caleb's had it this whole time and then he finally leaves and now you want to make me a part of the culture? Brandon Ennis is my pick, though. Brandon, you got your number 1 last year. It's time for you to. It's time for you to don it.
What I do want to. You mentioned Caleb downstairs. As great as Jermaine's quotes about Brock Boyd and Chris Henry Jr. were, one of my favorite quotes was like, "Hey," he was asked like, "Is there kind of like a chip on the shoulder for the secondary to prove like what you guys can do, like even though you don't have a player like Caleb Downs?" And he basically gave a quote that was like, "Caleb Downs wasn't here until he got here, so like we played football without him before."
Which is like, yeah, that's fair. And the defense was good before Caleb Downs got here. Life moves on. Yeah. Breaking news in college football: once you leave college, you don't come back to college.
How will Ohio State respond from not having Chase Young in its program? Well, I don't know. They had the best defense in the country last year.
Yeah. You leave college and you stay gone.
Well, former Saints defensive end Chase Young is returning to Ohio State. Or sorry, is entering his name into the transfer portal.
And then he's joining Ohio State.
And then he'll join Ohio State.
Yeah. I can't wait till a coach adds one of these players. And if I was in that presser talking to them, I would just play a clip of that same coach saying how crazy college football is. I can't believe we're letting people get away with all these things.
Yep.
Just like my question would literally just be me playing the video of the coach saying that before participating in the problem. 614-350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99. After that, Heisman might get down Monday, coming out on Monday. I think we're going to learn about the captains and stuff. We're doing a little draft action with it. Just getting a little bit more creative with it. We'll talk with Day on Monday as well. And that's all we know right now. We don't know anything else that's going to happen next week because we haven't been told yet. So hopefully the sports information people over at Ohio State let us know that information. But right now we don't have it. So all we can do is, be at where we're feet at. 614-350-3315, 2-week free trial. $3.99 after that for Stefan Krajisnik and Andrew Gillis. I'm Stephen Means. Talk to you guys later.